Hi, my name is Martina Gomez de la Torre. I am working with Luis Roman and Gabriela Chavez, and we will be presenting the influence of William Shakespeare. In this presentation, we will be talking about Shakespeare's family tree, his last will and testament, his legacy, people's opinions and thoughts about him, his inspiration and muse, and his original manuscripts.
The Shakespeare family tree. It first started with John Shakespeare and Mary Arden once they got married. They were the parents of William Shakespeare and all of his 7 siblings. John and Mary had 8 children: John, Margaret, William, Gilbert, John, Anne, Richard, and Edmund. William marries Anne Hathaway. They had 3 children: Susanna, Hamnet, and Judith. Hamnet died at a very young age. He was 11. In this moment, the Shakespeare name is lost since all 3 of Shakespeare's male siblings have passed away. Susanna marries John Hull, and they have a daughter named Elizabeth. Elizabeth first marries Thomas Nash, but later she remarries with John Barnard. Then Judith marries Thomas Queenie. They had 3 children: Shakespeare, Richard, and Thomas. With this, we can see how the Shakespeare last name has been lost since all of the males have passed away.
Shakespeare's will. Shakespeare's will was drafted in March 25, 1616. The document underlines many important people in Shakespeare's life, such as his family, friends, and neighbors. In early modern England, it was popular to write a will when death was quite already imminent. This meant that Shakespeare dictated his will when he was presumably already very ill. Researchers have taken a good look at the document, and have concluded that the shaky strokes in the signatures meant that these were done by someone who had trouble writing. However, everyone knows that Shakespeare had no trouble in writing, so researchers have concluded that by this time he was already ill, which caused the trembling when he wrote. Many have reflected that the will was drafted in January, but later on it was revised in March due to Shakespeare's daughter Judith's marriage, which turned into the change of her status into marital status. Here are a couple of examples of certain items and properties that Shakespeare passed on. The bulk of his property to Susanna Hall and Judith Quinn, his daughters. Money and clothes to his sister Joanne Hart and her 3 sons. However, one of her sons, Thomas' name was left blank and played to his granddaughter Elizabeth Hall. The only mention of Anne, his wife, is that he passed on his second best bed. Second best bed does not refer to the bed that Anne and Shakespeare slept on when they were married. Instead, the term is specifically used to distinguish one bed from another so that Anne received the right bed. What was Shakespeare's legacy? What did other people say about him? Francis Meres, an English writer, in 1598 declared Shakespeare England's greatest writer in comedy and tragedy. A writer and poet named John Weaver clearly stated, "Honey tongues Shakespeare." Ben Jonson, a corresponding literary critic for Shakespeare, wrote that Shakespeare had no problem writing about comedy. However, he also stated that Shakespeare had a mediocre approach to classical language and to the classical rules. Johnson also pointed out that Shakespeare exaggerated history over many years, and that he carried his theatrical works from country to country instead of focusing in one location. According to Ben Jonson, he also wrote too informal. He mixed up kings and clowns, played with loose verse that involved vulgarity, and a mix of mortals with fairies.
Shakespeare's inspiration and muse. William Shakespeare had a lot of different inspirations across the writing for all of his work. His inspirations varied from other great authors, his children, politics, and his wife. His muse was his only wife, Anne Hathaway. She was 8 years older than William Shakespeare. They had 3 children together. Anne Hathaway is known as a major inspiration for Shakespeare's work. Besides her, William Shakespeare had several other inspirations. For example, his inspiration for his play Hamlet was his only son, Hamnet. Shakespeare wrote this play after the death of his son. He died at the age of 11. Another inspiration of Shakespeare were the politics that surrounded him, the politics of his country. The monarchy and the royal family provided him inspiration that he used to write several of his works. William Shakespeare indeed had a lot of inspirations, but none of those compared to his wife and family.
Legacy. Shakespeare is considered the father of modern English because of everything he created and everything he left us behind. He wrote plays like Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, and Othello that are still referenced nowadays in things like movies, songs, musicals. Some popular expressions we hear in our everyday life are also references to Shakespeare's work. And some examples of this is a dish fit for the gods, from Julius Caesar. To be all and the end all, from Macbeth. We have seen better days, from As You Like It. A blinking idiot, from The Merchant of Venice. Besides that, he has also created many nouns, verbs, and adjectives, some of which are design, critique, bump, bedroom, elbow, gossip, blushing, importantly, threateningly, tightly. There haven't been records of the original manuscripts Shakespeare used, but the last surviving play manuscript is the Book of Thomas More, written before 1601.